Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And it's time for a news brief. Punk
Daily.
Punk Daily, that's right. I get
Punk Daily.
the feeling, Larson. I've just got this feeling. My spidey sense, my CM Punk sense are tingling. That will probably, depending on if whether or not there's like a gag order on CM Punk after this, after he's been let go for cause. There's going to be more stories coming out. There's going to be, at some point, CM Punk's side of things coming out. And we've got...
more CM Punk side of things.
Yeah, more of his side of things. And so, these news briefs will probably just end up becoming Punk Daily.
So, just to avoid confusion, no news about punk music here.
Right.
No news about, I don't know, name a punk band, Steve.
Fugazi.
Good.
Right. You know, no Ian McKay news. Sorry.
No.
Apologies. No, I guess Misfits are considered kind of punk, right?
I think so. So
I
no
think
Glenn
they are.
Danzig news?
No proto-punk news. No MC5 news.
No.
Anyways.
Maybe that channel exists somewhere on YouTube, but this is not the place.
I hope so.
News.
I love me some MC5. Anyways, Larson, let's kick out the jams with CM Punk news. What's the latest?
The latest. So let's go back to April of this year. If you recall, there was reports that surfaced that CM Punk had made a surprise appearance backstage when Raw was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty shocking, considering he was like in the midst of maybe negotiating his return to AEW. But apparently, Punk may have had the idea of reconnecting with WWE several months prior. Fightful Select reported over the weekend that sources close to Punk stated that around December of last year, 2022, Punk was, quote, open to the idea of leaving AEW so we can return to WWE, with Punk eyeing the 2023 Royal Rumble as a place where he'd make his WWE re-debut. One of the rumored ideas going around the WWE locker room or backstage, though not confirmed by Punk or his camp, was that Punk would be eliminated by Kevin Owens during the Rumble, then face him in the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania. Still not the main event of WrestleMania. Fightful notes that they haven't heard of WWE having any interest in such a return for Punk, or that AEW entertained the notion of releasing Punk late last year. So let's keep this in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At that time, late 2022, head into 2023, Kevin Owens was kind of busy. He was embroiled in the Bloodline story. He faced Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship at the 2023 Rumble. And that's when they had the huge angle where Sami Zayn broke off from the Bloodline.
That was huge.
Imagine that not happening because of Phil. And then, of course, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn ultimately reunite, beat the Usos for the Undisputed Tag titles at Mania 39. So imagine all that doesn't happen.
Gone. Yeah.
Never happens. Instead, we get Kevin Owens against CM Punk, Night 1 of WrestleMania, main event. Would you make that trade, Steve?
No, because the Bloodline story was off the hook good, and it made a lot of sense. I could see WWE perhaps considering that, given that a year before we had Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin Night 1, and that was, with the exception of Vince McMahon taking maybe the worst stunner ever.
Yeah.
I think that was probably considered a pretty big success for the WWE. So in terms of what I have traded in, no. Would the WWE have traded in? I think the possibility might exist. Something similar to, like, would the WWE had traded Cody Roman for Rock Roman, even though Cody, had his big return?
Yeah. That's an obvious yes.
I think they would have. So if they had metrics or some sort of market data to suggest that would make them more money, get them more eyeballs or whatever, perhaps they would have. I don't think that would have been best for the story, but money dictates kind of everything, I feel like, in WWE. So fortunately, we didn't get that, and who knows the genesis of that rumor, anyways.
Yeah, who knows?
Scuttlebutt in the locker room, were people fantasy booking back there? Who knows?
Maybe someone had to E-Fed. And that was the Mania match.
You're right. Maybe
We don't know.
we speculated once that Vince McMahon had an E-Fed.
We have made that speculation. One thing's obvious based on this story is CM Punk does not follow WWE programming whatsoever.
Yeah, man, maybe he was trying to fast track his own bloodline story. I don't know. But I don't know. So now that Kevin Owens is no longer with All Elite Wrestling.
No, you said Kevin Owens, CM Punk.
Kevin Owens is firmly with WWE, and he's never been with
never
AEW.
a part of All Elite Wrestling. Yes.
Could CM Punk make his way to WWE now that he's no longer with AEW? Now, Tony Khan declined to answer a question regarding a no-compete clause associated with Punk's firing. I believe that question was asked by John Pollock, I think, from Post Wrestling, which is a good question to ask.
Great question.
But the Wrestling Observer himself, those other guys who dropped those stale star ratings on a Friday.
Why does it take so long? You watch the
Why
match.
does it take so long?
Give your star ratings. Yeah.
Anyways, Dave Meltzer, who does have his ear to the ground when it comes to all things AEW, speculated, this is speculation, on what it could entail on a recent Wrestling Observer Radio. We're talking about no compete clauses, saying this. These transcripts come to you via Wrestling Inc. He says, this is not WWE, so this probably doesn't apply, but perhaps it does. In a standard WWE contract, if you are fired for cause, you have a 1-year non-compete. Wow. I didn't know that.
I know.
I didn't read the notes before. I like this stuff being my instant reactions to it. A 1-year non-compete clause.
That's
he said,
crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. He says, I'm sure if somebody went to court and was not being paid for a year, even if they screwed up and were fired for cause, I can't imagine any judge not saying, look, you can't do a non-compete.
So I listened to this segment on the most recent Wrestling Observer Radio, and you have legal experts, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, arguing about how enforceable non-compete clauses are.
Yeah, probably best you not. Look, I'm willing to have some fun with that topic, but in terms of being serious about knowing what I'm talking about, I'm going to step aside for that one. Because, I don't know. I mean, we've seen in WWE, people refuse to show up for a long time, like Pac, for example. He didn't show up for a long time, and I have no idea if he was getting paid at the time or not. And then I think he just ended up not going back at all, right? He didn't end up coming.
Yeah, he never went back. No.
Yeah, he never went back.
Either his contract expired or they ended up releasing him, yeah.
And who knows if whether or not he was getting paid at the time. I don't think we ever got confirmation on that. I mean, look, for the sake of fun, I would imagine like a judge would probably be like, well, you have other means of making money. You know, I don't know. I would think a non-compete means you can't work for other wrestling companies or television,
in that industry,
wrestling in that industry. So that's as far as I'm going to speculate on that.
Yeah, wasn't there? Oh yeah, the FTC just had something recently about challenging non-compete clauses.
Oh yeah, the government now did. Yeah,
FTC proposes rule to ban non-compete clauses.
Yeah, they don't like non-compete clauses. Yeah. But I don't know.
Anyways.
Meanwhile,
PW Insider had some details about what could be next for Punk. According to PW Insider, Punk became subject conversation backstage with WWE as soon as AEW parted ways with him. The reaction to possibly bringing him in WWE was, as one would expect, divided. Mm-hmm. Some are all, nah. Some are all, you can make money for us. Yeah. So Impact Wrestling reportedly be interested in bringing him in, assuming they could afford Phil's contract demands. And apparently, New Japan Pro Wrestling, reportedly, won't be pursuing Punk due to their relationship with AEW. Additionally, PW Insider stated that it is believed that Punk was fired without a non-compete clause, so he could, in theory at least, show up anywhere, anytime.
That'd be a pretty big bombshell if that was the case. If he was fired, if
Survivor Series in Chicago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that would be pretty huge. Yeah, man, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if WWE does sign him, how much input they get from high-profile acts there. Seth Rollins in particular, currently the World Heavyweight Champion on Raw, their top guy there on that brand, seemingly not a fan. Now, it's wrestling, so you kind of never really know if it's like fake or real, but by all accounts, Seth Rollins is not a fan of CM Punk. I think it goes beyond that little, the little thing he did with, was it Houseman?
It was Nick Houseman, and then
it was
he had
Nick
a podcast
Houseman,
appearance where he spoke more about. There's several people going all the way to the top. Triple H, people who in the past, not to say that beefs can't be squashed, who have had beefs with CM Punk.
I would be surprised if Triple H had a problem with him, simply because right now all the views that they can get, the better. Understanding what happened with, what allegedly happened with William Regal. Triple H is a business guy. One thing he probably learned from Vince, and he learned a lot from Vince, you step aside when you could do business. You put egos aside when you could do business. And understanding what happened at AEW, they might think, well, this is an AEW. That's the secondary promotion, and he wouldn't be able to do that stuff here.
Yeah. The structure of WWE would prevent that kind of behavior in theory.
But does Roman Reigns, does Paul Heyman, does, like I said, Seth Rollins,
Does Cody Rhodes, does Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has had run-ins with CM Punk in the past, so.
The only interview I've ever seen with Kevin Owens where he's talking about CM Punk, Kevin Owens seems like he honestly seems like the coolest guy in a very diplomatic way.
Yes.
Relate a story where Punk just sort of came off like a D-bag, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And Kevin Owens isn't even salty about it, but
tells the story pretty matter-of-factly.
He does. So, I get the feeling that a lot of those guys would simply be, well, if he can make all of us money, then let's do it. But everybody's going to have their guard up because they know what he brings to the table from a positive and a negative standpoint.
It could also be a situation where people that may have issues with Punk, they may protest somewhat, but at the end of the day, they might be all right if they're going to bring him in.
That could be too.
I'm not working with them.
That could be.
I don't want to work with them.
Yeah, I mean, Seth Rollins outright said he wasn't going to work with Matt Riddle, and then Matt Riddle had to step up and apologize to the guy, and then they did work together, and then Seth Rollins ended his career with a single line.
Then when Punk apparently showed up backstage of that Raw in Chicago, apparently one of the reasons is to patch things up or try to patch things up with The Miz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Whatever beef they may have had. So, it's possible in the world of professional wrestling, people that have beefs going on for decades, find a way to settle them.
Let me ask you this, though. This is another aspect. This is another element to it. The Chicago crowd seemingly got over it pretty quickly. Like Tony Khan, by the end of his 1 minute promo, 2-minute promo to the live crowd, had a lot of the crowd on his side because he opened up and he was honest and he was transparent. He says, I felt threatened by this guy, and I wanted to come out here before we rolled camera and tell you guys what the deal is because I like coming to Chicago. And by the end of that, by all accounts, there were Tony chants. And I'm not saying there were plenty of Punk shirts or plenty of Punk signs. Some of them got confiscated. So I'm not saying everybody got over it, but that crowd at All Out did not take over that show.
Do you remember All Out last year, 2023, when Punk won the title? And the crowd was happy, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, Punk, you won. But then MJF comes and it reveals himself to be MJF. That's when he made his return.
Yeah.
And the show ended with the crowd chanting MJF while CM Punk's in the ring.
Yeah.
CM Punk looked a little salty about that. He didn't look happy.
I'll have to go back and review that. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Because they do the thing where he had the mask on and won the poker chip, and then they do that video package and he comes out to the ramp.
Yeah. Okay, no, that does. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I'll have to gauge Punk's body language on that one
He
again.
I'm not saying he was like, oh my gosh.
I trust you. Yeah.
He looked a little salty.
Dude. Yeah, I don't know. And here's the thing. We're in September. The Survivor Series is 2.5 months away.
2.5 months away, yeah.
Not a lot of time. Look, I'm sure any crowd will pop for history being made. For Punk returning to WWE, the place where he said he wouldn't go, the place where he ran down to MJF and said you get, a 4-night buy one, get one free, referring to WrestleMania. So I think anybody will pop. But the other thing about WWE is that if you watch it, nobody goes off script. And I don't mean scripted promos. I mean, when there's a plan in place, They buy into the universe of WWE. All the performers, they all do. Nobody's doing these work shoot things. Nobody calls out anybody. You go off script once, I would imagine there's harsh consequences.
I would think so.
And I don't know if Punk is the personality to do that. And if his behavior in AEW, we talked about if his behavior in AEW, I don't know. I honestly don't know if WWE would take the risk knowing that he's a bit of a loose cannon. I don't know if they want that element.
I know, like, there's been nothing but stories of the locker room these days being fairly harmonious. You don't hear about any issues in WWE locker room.
I know you don't.
Just don't hear it. Maybe there are, and they're just not getting out, whatever the case may be. But the perception is the vibe in the locker room's great. Everybody's getting along.
Yeah.
No issues. And if that's that's a huge deal. You want that, ideally. And then you introduce, as you mentioned, a loose cannon, per se, in CM Punk. How is he going to mess with the chemistry when you already know there's people within that locker room that might have issue with them?
The only way you'd be able to do it, and I think this could be successful if it's something that Punk was interested in, is strictly you're going to come in for this pay-per-view and 4 weeks of build before it. We'll gauge, we'll take it moment by moment. And you do the pay-per-view, you take some time off. Essentially Brock, you go away, you come back, and we will take it bit by bit. That's the only way I could think that would work. But again, in wrestling and in the business, the one thing is, like, wrestlers they're used to dealing with big personalities and big egos, and they're all grown women and men. And, I'm sure, again, if they think, hey, this is going to be a lot of money for us, they'd probably most of them would be willing to do it, I would imagine. And on top of that, like, the top guy, Roman Reigns, well, his wise man is Paul Heyman, who has, I would think, a healthy relationship, or at least a positive relationship with CM Punk. We had never heard of anything,
falling out or anything like that.
Souring between those guys. And maybe if anybody could sort of quote unquote manage Punk, and I don't mean on screen, maybe that guy could be Paul Heyman. He might be instrumental to a return to WWE for CM Punk. I could see that being the case. But again, like you said, it's professional wrestling. Anything can happen. I'd be surprised if it did happen. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen. Anyways, that's going to do it for this first edition of Punk Daily. Maybe you never know. Maybe tomorrow we'll return with I don't know, an actual news brief that doesn't have anything to do with CM Punk.
I mean, maybe by naming this episode of News Brief Punk Daily, it's going to alleviate the Punk news deluge.
That could be.
And we will have a day or two with no Punk news, and therefore no Punk Daily.
Wow. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anyways, hey, do us a favor.
Hey, maybe tomorrow for fun, know what we could do? Let's do a Punk Daily about punk music.
Oh, okay. Probably tank the algorithm for our channel. Sounds fun. But maybe we'll paywall it, Hey, top 10 punk rockers that we'd love to see in WWE.
Good.
I mean, Danzig's number one.
I think so. Yeah.
Or maybe he can go to CZW and fight Zandig. That's going to do it, everybody. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.